What's up, Rovers? It's been a while. Today's video goes over an Aero Rover tech I meant to cover back when Cartethyia came out. With patch 2.8, we've headed off to Hanami City and met Chisa, while also finding the portal to Lahairoi. Chisa's introduction as a negative status buffer has brought much debate on optimal Zanny teams and Cartethyia teams. In particular, a lot of discussion over Chisa with their signature being an improvement over Aero Rover for Cartethyia. Some players mentioned that any improvement over Aero Rover is enough to justify pulling because Aero Rover is incredibly clunky to play, and they would rather not bother. Using Aero Rover also means you cannot use Spectral Rover for Zanny teams, which actually matters because Spectral Rover is still better than Chisa there. Others say that spending up to 270 pulls to get Chisa and her signature just to get a minor improvement over Aero Rover isn't worth it. Obviously, it should be clear now that Chisa is meant to be paired with 3.x DPS if you're looking for best in slot teams, rather than just teams she fits into. She's still a good unit, just not the best unit for our current teams. Just look at the amount of Quickswap Chisa needs in a Cartethyia team for the better than Rover claims to be true. But that's not what today's video is about. Instead, we're going to be looking at a way to improve Aero Rover's gameplay, reduce field time, faster rotations, less aerial time needed, more consistency. All rotations mentioned today are included in the spreadsheet linked in the description. Maybe this video can change your opinion on whether or not you need Chisa to make Cartethyia teams feel less clunky. Fair warning, today's tech relies on Quickswap, but it isn't hard to pull off the bare minimum for it to be usable. I'll be explaining the basic version first and then the more advanced version later. The lower invested your Aero Rover, the more you benefit from today's tech. DLTR, we give up some of Rover's damage to make them much faster and allow your main DPS to have more field time. This is most important for the Cartethyia team, because she's the most likely DPS paired with Aero Rover, and we all know her already long field time can actually be extended for even more damage, since she does not have an action limit or resource limit like most other main DPS. Therefore, a faster Aero Rover means more Cartethyia actions too. What you see today can also be used for Jiyan main DPS. If you're playing Jiyan or any Aero team in the future that does not include outro buffs or self buffs that expire on swap. This means while it can work on Yuno main DPS too, remember that Yuno resets her one light blessing stacks every time she swaps off and thus isn't worth it here. Now in a standard Aero Rover rotation, you need to go in the air 2 times to fill 120 wind strings. It is the only way to build Rover's Forte bar quickly. Intro or normal skill puts Rover in the air and unlocks the enhanced basics Cloudburst Dance 1 and 2. Doing both fills most of one segment, and your plunge into basic 4 covers the missing part to get your first 60 wind strings. You can only cast your Forte skill, Unbound Flow, when your Forte is completely full. Therefore, even with Cartethyia on the team to grant 25 wind strings when Rover casts ult, and Rover intro granting 20 wind strings by itself, you still can't reach 120 wind strings without going in the air twice. Cartethyia's passive really was just to make up for her best in slot team Aero Rover Jiyan, where Aero Rover would lead the fight with no intro. This is where Rover's clunkiness comes from. Going into the air with skill eats a fair bit of time, tracking isn't the best, and you can easily be knocked out of the air when doing this. Now while today's tech cannot fix the opener rotation requiring you to go into the air twice, it can reduce the amount of aerials needed on subsequent rotations to just once. AKA Aero Rover's intro alone into a single Cloudburst chain will be enough to let you finish their Forte and outro. This is preferred because Aero Rover's intro, like all intros in the game, inflicts a field stop during its animation and puts you directly on the enemy, meaning it 99% of the time cannot miss, whereas casting skill manually gives time for the enemy to dodge or attack and does not gap close well. Therefore, this tech makes you much less likely to be interrupted or miss. Additionally, while quick-swapping Aero Rover is naturally useful, a normal Aero Rover rotation has to fill both segments of your Forte bar to cast Unbound Flow. Remember that Unbound Flow is split into 2 parts, with each half consumed providing 20 Concerto. Yes, I know stage 2 can be triggered by casting outro if stage 1 filled your entire Concerto bar and allows your next rotation to begin with 20 Concerto overflow. But even if you need 20 Concerto less to outro in the next rotation, your Forte bar is now completely empty, and you're gonna have to go into the air 2 times next rotation again to fill it all the way back up so you can cast Unbound Flow again. Now, Unbound Flow requiring a full Forte bar to cast even if you need only half the concerto provided has always been Aero Rover's biggest issue. The second part of Unbound Flow, the big sword drop, is only casted under certain conditions when you use Aero Rover's Forte skill. You either need to 1. Manually keep attacking the enemy with basic attacks after casting it, or wait. 2. You outro to another character. If you don't do either of these two things, Rover's active Forte state will disable and not cast Stage 2 Unbound Flow, keeping one segment of your Forte bar. Obviously, in a standard team, we want to outro after casting this move. So how do you outro with Aero Rover without triggering Unbound Flow Stage 2? This can be solved with what I call a Forte Echo Cancel on Aero Rover. Casting a Transformative Echo after casting Unbound Flow will deactivate Aero Rover's Forte state, preventing Unbound Flow Stage 2 from happening, even if you stay attacking after or outro. This allows us to start the next team rotation with Rover already half full on Forte, reducing the amount of Cloudburst dances needed until we can use Unbound Flow Stage 1 again. Now, while I recommend the Fleur de Echo on Aero Rover when I made my Cartethyia guide, that assumed you would go in the air with Rover 2 times, and the Echo's field stop was very useful for preventing enemies from attacking so you could fill your Forte bar. This is still good and an easy way to use Aero Rover if you're just starting out, but if you want to use the Forte Echo Cancel tech today, you cannot use Fleur de Echo on Rover because it's a summon and not a transformation. If you want to stay on Windward Pilgrimage, use Kelpie instead. If you're using Sierra Gale, you want to use the non-Nightmare version of Beringal. If you're on healer set, Bell counts as a transform here due to its hard-locked animation. All non-transformative summons from Jui in 1.1 patch onwards are different than Bell. You cast these echoes immediately after you cast Unbound Flow and then immediately outro into your next character. Now, while I've explained how to shorten the amount of time needed to charge Rover's Forte after the first team rotation, this doesn't solve the other issue. If you skip Unbound Flow Stage 2, then every rotation will now be missing 20 Concerto, right? This is easily solved with Quickswap. Aero Rover's normal skill, Awakening Gale, provides 10 Concerto every single time you cast it, and has a very short 3 seconds cooldown. Therefore, replacing Unbound Flow Stage 2 with 2 Awakening Gale casts outside of Rover's rotation is sufficient to cover the Concerto loss. This is similar to how Havoc Rover sub DPS is played, where you're normally looking to cast one out of rotation skill to cover the Concerto and energy normally produced by spamming basic attacks during Havoc Rover's rotation, which lets you shave off several seconds. It's easier to pull off an Aero Rover because the skill we're trying to quick swap has only a 3 seconds cooldown, unlike Havoc Rover's skill having a 12 seconds cooldown. Thus, we now only have to fill one segment of Aero Rover's Forte each rotation after the opener, and manage to offset the missing Concerto from skipping Unbound Stage 2 using Quickswap. Now, this tech will require some practice to use, but should not be that difficult since all you need to learn is casting a Transformative Echo on Rover right before outro. The Forte Echo Cancel is used in all rotations, including the first, but obviously Aero Rover starts the first rotation with an empty Forte bar and 0 Concerto, so it will be a bit different. Here are the standard Aero Rover rotations used in the opener, and then the looped variant that used the Forte Echo Cancel tech. Example quick swaps will be shown afterwards. Starting the fight, Rover leads with a skill cast into the air and Cloudburst dance 1-2. Then we plunge back down onto the ground into basic 4. This fills the first Forte segment, skill back into the air, and Cloudburst dance 1-2 again, and plunge again into basic 4, then cast Liberation. Afterwards, cast Unbound Flow, immediately cast your Echo, and outro. When paired with Chikona Quickswaps, you will usually miss Rover's basic 4 on the ground after the plunge. In Cartethyia teams, this is okay, since her passive covers the missing 20 win strings by making Rover's Liberation give 25 win strings. In teams without Cartethyia though, like Jiyan, you can cover the missing win strings from Chikona Quickswap that caused it, like this. Instead of casting Liberation after your second plunge, cast skill a third time into the air, and poke the enemy once with Cloudburst 1 to get your missing 20 win strings, and immediately Liberation cancel to put you back on the ground. Then Forte and Echo cancel again into outro. On looped rotations, it does not matter if Cartethyia is on the team. The rotation Aero Rover uses will always be the same. Rotations aim to include the plunge to favor synergy with Chikona Quickswaps, but you don't need your basic 4, and this allows her to swap in directly for an aerial 2 plunge as well into her own basic 4, which builds one Forte segment for Chikona. Anyways, Rover intros with half of their Forte already full, and intro granting another 20 out of the missing 60. A simple Cloudburst 1-2 will be enough to fill up your Forte completely. If you did 2 Quickswap Rover skills earlier, then next you will cast skill Skyfall Severance after Cloudburst. If you did 3 Quickswap Rover skills earlier, then you can completely skip this Skyfall Severance and go directly into a plunge for Concerto. If you're using Chikona, you can Quickswap her in here if you want. Then Rover on the ground will cast Unbound Flow as soon as it's available into an Echo Cancel. Immediately dodge the Echo into a Liberation Cancel. Then match skill and Outro as soon as it casts. That's it. It should only take about 4 to 5 seconds to perform. If you play the even sweatier setup, where you don't just fit 2 times skill out of rotation on Rover, but also a Cloudburst 1-2, then Rover will intro the next rotation with a completely full Forte bar, and this shaves off 1 second since you can go directly into Skyfall Severance before you plunge. You can cut Rover's dedicated field time to just 3 seconds doing this. It can save enough time to allow Cartethyia an entire extra basic 3-4-5 chain within 25 seconds when taken to its limits, which basically completely nullifies the advantage Chisa would normally have in Cartethyia teams. For a full breakdown on all looped Aero Rover rotation variants using the Forte Echo Cancel tech, refer to the description for the spreadsheet. The remaining piece of the puzzle, though, is finding 2 pieces to quickswap in Aero Rover's normal skill cast to substitute the missing 20 Concerto from skipping Unbound Flow Stage 2. We will look at our 2 main candidates that can make good use of Aero Rover, being Jiyan and Cartethyia. Jiyan is far easier to demonstrate, so we'll lead with him first. Remember that today's tech hinges on teams that do not use outro buffs that expire on swap. So for example, we the popular Jiyan Chikona team. This team has always been special for its crazy quickswap potential, since Jiyan has a very regular pace for each Qinglong Dragon basic attack during his ult. Mormont showcased the way to fit Chikona's entire rotation inside of Jiyan's ult too, but how about Aero Rover? All we need to fit is 2 Awakening Gale skill casts, which should be very easy to pull off, since all Jiyan does is spam the same move over and over again. His ult also lasts 10 seconds, therefore all you have to do is swap off Jiyan as he starts another heavy attack, and cast skill on Rover, and swap back to Jiyan. Sometime before Jiyan's ult ends, you swap to Rover again to cast another skill. Remember to do this at least 3 seconds apart to make sure Rover's skill comes off cooldown, and that's it. The next time you bring Rover in during intro, you'll see they already have 30 Concerto, 10 from each skill cast, and another 10 from intro itself, as well as a half full Forte bar. For Cartethyia teams, there are 4 main quickswap windows where Aero Rover can comfortably fit in. Cartethyia teams are harder since 3 of the swap windows are high risk that rely on swapping back to her in time to continue in successive move combo, which break if you're too slow. Remember, you only need to pick 2 swap windows minimum to make today's tech work. The first window is whenever small form Cartethyia performs the basic 2-3-4 combo, which is needed to produce one of her spectral sword buffs anyways. Basic 3 takes 64 frames or roughly 1.1 seconds to perform, and has an additional 0.5 seconds tolerance to swap back before it fails to continue into basic 4. You can swap off to cast Aero Rover skill during this time and then swap back to Cart. Keep in mind the swap timer cooldown is 1 second long. I personally don't like using this window since it can be super awkward. The second and fourth swap windows are when Cartethyia's big form, Fleur-de-Lis, is performing basic 4. This is seen when she assembles all the spectral swords to her left and right as she forms the big sword overhead to strike down. This move takes exactly 60 frames to perform, which is 1 second, and also has the common 0.5 seconds tolerance on top of that to swap back in time. This move is used at least twice in all Fleur-de-Lis rotations that anybody uses, so I recommend picking this window, as it means you only need to learn 1 quick swap window. You swap off to Aero Rover right as the spectral swords start to form, cast Awakening Gale skill, and mash swap back to Fleur-de-Lis so you can land her basic 5 in time. The big sword drop from the sky. At the start of Fleur-de-Lis combo, this is usually followed by her casting skill to go up into the air herself. At the end of Fleur-de-Lis combo, she'll do another basic 3-4-5 right before doing her fat laser beam second ult. You can swap to Rover again during this final basic forward to cast skill, before going back to Fleur-de-Lis one last time. There's one extra Quickswap window in Fleur-de-Lis I haven't mentioned yet. The third Quickswap window on Fleur occurs when Fleur-de-Lis casts her second skill to plunge down from the sky. Any kind of plunge in her big form will lead into basic 3-4-5, but taking so long that Fleur-de-Lis despawns from the field is okay because she also swaps in starting at basic 3-4-5. This makes the plunge quickswap the most forgiving one of all. If Chikona is on the team, normally you will swap off of Fleur's plunge as it starts into Chikona so she can land into a basic 4 and generate one Forte segment. It does not matter if Rover commits to the plunge directly swapping off of Fleur or not, or after Chikona has hit the ground and then you pull Rover out. All we need to make sure is that Rover is on the ground and casts skill Awakening Gale before swapping back to Fleur-de-Lis. This will then lead into her final basic 3-4-5 before her big laser beam second ult. Complete any of the 2 quick swaps that I mentioned in this section to cast Rover skill will result in Rover introing with 30 Concerto already full, 10 from each skill cast and another 10 from intro itself. This allows you to use Aero Rover's looped rotation mentioned earlier and hit 100 Concerto from just Unbound Flow stage 1 before Forte echo cancel again into outro. For this last section, during Cartethyia's and Fleur-de-Lis' rotation, you can double quickswap on Rover to fit both the Awakening Gale skill cast and then a Cloud Burst Dance 1-2 as well if you want to go the advanced quickswap route. This is highly difficult, and what I'm about to show you is not necessary for the tech shown today to function, but shortens Rover's rotation even further, allowing them to intro with a completely full Forte bar and 36 Concerto already filled, which allows them to Skyfall Severance into a plunge, Forte echo cancel into an ult, then skill immediately into an outro cancel, which results in less than 4 seconds of dedicated field time. This maximizes Cartethyia's field time and allows her to easily fit in an entire extra basic 3-4-5 for significantly higher team DPS, which nullifies Chisa's advantages and basically allows Rover to pull even again. This is done by fitting a Rover skill after landing from Fleur-de-Lis' plunge attack in her big form, then swapping to Fleur-de-Lis' basics 3-4. You want to swap back to Rover as soon as Fleur's basic 4 spectral swords start forming around her, and then you will use Rover's Cloud Burst Dance 1-2, then swap back to Fleur to cast basic 5's Big Sky Sword. The other moment on when you can do this is a Rover skill during Cartethyia's small form basic 2-3-4. You want to swap to Rover during Cartethyia's basic 3, then swap back to Cartethyia when she pulls down her sword to perform basic 4 to get her spectral sword buff. You will then mash a swap back to Rover so you can cast Cloud Burst Dance 1-2 before Rover despawns in the air. And that's it for the advanced swap windows. Thank you so much for watching through this entire video. I hope this Aero Rover tech has been useful for deciding on whether to pull for Chisa or using her in Cartethyia teams. As a reminder, all spreadsheets documenting my testing can be found in the description and pinned comment. Do feel free to make a copy if you want to change values and test stuff. Cheers! If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Stick around if you want to see interesting videos. You don't want to miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this one. Thank you all for watching and I'll see you all next time.